welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you here. Always a pleasure to have people that I've never actually met before, because a lot of the people that come on the show I've been working with before, or I know in some way or form. So it's great when we have people that I haven't met before, because I really get to learn a lot more. Sometimes there's only snippets, but this should be good, so I'm excited. So, Kelly, your business, eQALY, did I say that right?
Yep.
Yep, that's good. The number one thing. Tell me a little bit about eQALY, but before you do that, tell me about what sort of journey you came on to bring you to eQALY and why you started it, and then sort of lead that into what it does.
Sure. So, look, I've been in Australia for about 8 years.
Yep.
Most of my career has been spent sort of in the education, not-for-profit sectors.
Uh-huh.
I have a real passion for sort of leveling the playing field, getting everybody access to the same things, especially young people,
Yep.
you know, getting their early start in life. And I really love scaling impact. So, yeah, I was working in the not-for-profit sector most of my time here in Australia. And then, you know, COVID really changed a lot of things for me personally and the world around us, right?
It did.
And I was just forced to sort of ask myself a few questions. A few years ago, I did something really exciting and I co-founded a charity.
Cool.
And I had the opportunity to really scale something big. I saw parts of Australia that a lot of expats take a long time to get to or never get to see.
I'm sure there are parts I haven't.
Yeah, so, you know, spending the time in kind of the far corners of regional Australia, things like that, I got a good view of sort of that things really aren't always equal here.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, you know, all the excitement of scaling that business, I kind of turned around and said, could I do that again? Was that a flash in the pan? Or do I have it in me to do something different, scale it?
Yep.
And maybe this time, let's try to make it, make a few bucks.
And it's a common question, you know, I've met a lot of people who, and I had the same question myself. You know, I've done 3 businesses now, and every time you go, was the first 2 times lucky? Was the first time lucky? And I think it's a really, really common question. So it's interesting that you said that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you got to this stage and you're like, okay, I want to do something. This time I want to make some money as well. Where did you go from there?
Yeah, so look, COVID again, very interesting time. Another friend of mine was also in a career transition. Mm-hmm. And so we were sitting and having breakfast and meeting up and setting goals and kind of holding each other accountable. And she'd sort of mentioned this Antler program. Yep. And I looked into it. And I actually started out kind of discouraging her. I was like, you know, don't work for free for anyone. And we both ended up applying, long story short, both ended up getting in. And, you know, just the process of, you know, meeting all these like-minded people who were super ambitious and wanting to do something, you know. Some people were gunning to do stuff in green energy. Some people are just like, nope, e-commerce. I'm gonna sell bras in a way bras have never been sold before. Yep. You know, people had all these great ideas, and that kind of energy is really infectious. So it was great during a kind of a hard time. And then I actually met my co-founder. I thought he was an interesting person, but I didn't think we really had enough in common to do any kind of business together.
You met him at the Antler program, right?
Yes.
Which is generally how it works.
Yeah. So he's kind of I'll just describe him as a health guy. Yep. He's a recovering a consultant, business consultant who managed some big projects in health. And he kind of wanted to do his own thing. And again, like me, wanted to see if, you know, he could do it on his own. Yep. And I just kind of thought, oh, that guy's interesting. I'll definitely be having a beer with him. And lo and behold, we actually ended up working on some design sprints together for something unrelated. And we just found that we really worked well together. So
it's a clever system, isn't it, the Antler? I mean, as you know, we've had Adele from Antler on. We've had quite a few other founders from the Antler program on. I think we've had 3 or 4 actually now in total. So I think you might be the 5th, which is a lucky number. So I'm a big fan of the program, and it's amazing how. I agree with you. When you get into a room with a lot of people who are positive and energized and want to do something, not all of them necessarily know what it is. It's inspiring, I guess, to see.
And curious, right?
Yeah, that's a good word.
People just looking for answers, looking to be proven wrong. That is refreshing. You do not find that at every not-for-profit or every corporate job that you will find. So, yeah, I was loving it. Yeah.
Okay, so you came up with eQALY with Andy, right?
Actually, Andy had done some volunteer work, and he had started evolving the idea, and he had this little slide deck, and he he kind of at the end of the day said, hey, can I show you something
Did he
I've been
pitch
thinking
you?
about? Yeah, he did, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us about it. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, so what we now call eQALY, straight from the old slide deck, is a concept where we're bringing big data to aged care.
Right.
The idea that, at the moment, the way that the system works, if someone wants to stay at home, they may or may not have a government subsidized package. Mm-hmm. They go to a provider, and that person manages a mix of services to try and keep them, served at home. So they might get some help with personal hygiene, they might get some help with the housework, and they may even get services like a pharmacist delivering their meds. But all in all, it helps to keep you independent and doing kind of well on your own. But we know that largely people that are in aged care, residential or at home, are underserved. Yes. And we also know that we don't really have enough of a workforce to serve the ever-growing aging population. And, quite frankly, there are some issues within the industry with neglect and abuse.
Yep.
So what we're looking to do is address the quality issue, but from a point of view of the quality of life for the elderly person. Mm-hmm. And also for the people that are working in the sector. We cannot forget how important they are, and look at scaling business by helping to upskill people.
Yep.
And to help them make data-informed decisions. So
okay.
Big data meets aged care.
And what does eQALY stand for?
E, so electronic.
Yep.
Quality adjusted life years.
Okay, cool. And so you're taking the big data concept, and who are you selling that information to? Is that
aged care and community care?
Okay, so the bigger companies that not only manage the facilities, but also the companies that manage the individuals and so forth, and
we're
also,
small,
and the home ones as well.
Yeah, we're sort of size agnostic. But if you think about the workforce who are currently, they're non-clinical, they might have high project management or clerical skills. Yep. Definitely high empathy. They don't have that clinical knowledge. So
okay, yep.
If someone's had their blood pressure low for 3 days in a row, that's alarming. But rather than saying, we need to get them in to see the doctor or call emergency services, yep. There may in fact be some other interventions before it becomes an emergency. There can be small signals like someone moving around the home or getting out of the home less and less, which happened a lot during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. That can actually, for an elderly person, be quite detrimental because slowing their day-to-day activity can mean that they're more at risk for a fall, which we all know can be very, very dangerous
Absolutely.
for an elderly person. Okay.
And so how long has eQALY been... eQALY, I've got to get it right. How long has eQALY been going now?
Well, I think we kind of... Antler puts you through a pretty interesting process. So I think yep. we've been kind of on this journey for the better part of probably 10 months.
Okay, also, yeah, it's good. It's a good innings so far.
Yeah, but we registered as a company sort of late in 2020.
Yep.
And we have a pilot. That means we have customers, paying customers.
Exciting.
It is, actually. And so that's where our focus really is now, is sort of scaling that and, building our brand out, yep. Potentially building our team out, and just doing all the things to keep it above water and keep it going.
And scale it, right? And
definitely.
So tell me, a lot of the people that come on the show, businesses have been around quite a long time, years and years and years. Obviously, 10 months. I'm interested to know if in that first initial 10 months, and I think a lot of people can relate to this in terms of they'll be interested to know the answer. I think once a company's been going 5 years, you forget about the challenges that happen in the first year. So I think it'd be great to hear from you the challenges that you have had in that first 10 months, or even maybe when you were starting to, even when you joined the Antler program, I'm not sure what you choose. But tell me some of the challenges you've had so far, which I think everyone in the world will be able to relate to because you're such early stage.
Yeah. Look, I think... I mentioned previously that my background is more in kind of the education and not-for-profit sector. And I think I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder being kind of cast as this do-gooder that was trying to dabble in entrepreneurship. So I think I went hard on playing to win. I am a competitive person. Yep. And I think early on, looking at some of my decisions or some of the... my insistence on doing things a certain way, I do think, on reflection, I was playing to win. And what I've learned, and I think what we've learned as a team, is we've really got to focus on really advocating for the client user and for our customer, knowing the difference between the two, and making sure that this isn't about, any kind of personal vendetta or like, hey, I'm going to show people who I am. Like, I can do that through my good work, So.
Don't you think you need a little bit of that anyway, though? A little bit. I don't necessarily think this, but I have a lot of people tell me, that you need a little bit of that, I guess drive's the wrong word, but almost proving yourself to other people from a past time in your life or something like that, like you mentioned. Do you think a little bit of that's important, or do you think that you don't need that at all?
Oh, look, it definitely helps me.
Yep.
I suppose I might be foolhardy, but I suppose just kind of having an enduring belief in my beliefs and the direction that we're going in really helps to get through those low days. You know, sometimes in some of the jobs I've had in the past, you know, we all have like a slow Monday. We all have a bad week where, you know, there's just other things going on and you're putting forward work that maybe isn't 5 stars, but you're still going to get the 5-star applause for it. That does not happen in a startup. You could put your 6th star effort in, and it just falls flat.
There's no applause. It's just tumbleweed.
Yeah. So you've got to be there for the cause, not the applause, for sure.
Okay, and so that's good. I like that. The cause, not the applause. I haven't heard that one before. I like it when I hear new things. Okay, so tell me, you know, you've said that has made you believe that you can show that through your cause. So what have you achieved so far that you are probably most proud of in that 10 months? And where do you want to take it in the next, let's not get silly and say 5 years because it's a cliche, but let's say, for the hell of it, the next 10 months. You know, you've got a pilot running, so maybe tell us a little bit about that and what that involves and all that kind of stuff.
So we've partnered with a community care organization. So they're not just our first pilot customer, they're also a strategic investor.
That's helpful.
So we've had this really great advantage of being able to co-design some of the features and work with the actual workforce. So not an innovation group, you know, in a high tower locked away from the real world. We're actually talking to real world users who look up at me and ask big, hairy questions that I have to take on notice and come back. So that's been wonderful. And then now we've got the actual users coming onto the platform. So families where we really are aiming to make a difference in the way that they're living.
Is this people at home or is this in a facility that this pilot's at?
People at home.
Okay, cool. So that's a real pilot. Oh my gosh, that's going out, all out.
That's right. Yeah, so in an actual household in the Northern Beaches, someone's just got their sensors installed. And in this particular household, the son has moved back in with his mother to look after her, make sure she's not too isolated. And he's left his family, his immediate family, to live closer with mom.
It's a massive call.
It is. And this is not entirely uncommon. So
really, I didn't realize. I would have thought that wouldn't it make more sense for the mum to move in with the family?
For whatever reasons, maybe there wasn't enough room in the household. Maybe there are schedules or things, or maybe it's just out of the way. You know, maybe mom wants to stay with her garden. That means the world to her that she planted years ago when they bought the home. So there are things about being somewhere familiar that actually benefit that woman. So we actually, you know, early on we're getting signals that this could really improve not just the way that the elderly person will live, but the son. And that will determine better outcomes, stronger outcomes for his mother.
So how important is the tech in this business? You know, we're talking very much about the human side of it, but obviously if you're using big data, the tech is going to be a massive, massive part of it. So maybe just explain how that works a little more.
Yeah, so we leverage technology that's essentially smart home technology and kind of biometric technology in the home to sort of give you multiple signals about where a person's at, both physically and how they're doing mentally and, of course, going down to their health and so forth. So smart scale, you know, giving you your health, or sorry, your weight. And then we've got, you know, diabetes monitors now that can integrate directly in, so we get those numbers. And then we also have motion sensors that tell you where a person's been throughout the day, making sure that they've gotten up, telling you if they're off routine or if they're not sleeping, or unfortunately if they've wandered, right? These are all
out the house,
common concerns. Yes. So we combine all of this information in, and what we're able to do is, over the determination of a longer-term trend, help that care manager understand if this person's just having an off week, or if this person is kind of indicating a need to be seen by a professional, or maybe to have a review of their kind of overall case, and maybe advocate for further funding or further services to, you know, keep them well, keep them safe at home.
So it's very preemptive, I guess, is really the whole purpose of it. Is that right?
Yeah, and also saying that I love is between the flags. This is about keeping people between the flags.
Is that relevant outside of Australia? I don't know. Do they have flags in the States?
In California, we definitely do.
Yeah, I'm sure. I remember seeing them. Okay, so sorry, back to the tech. So you're not a tech person, is that right? Or you are
just enough to get me into trouble.
And is Andy a tech person?
So Andy and I are both non-technical co-founders.
Okay, so this is a great topic because to build a business that relies quite heavily on tech, which yours does, and obviously we're talking about IO tech and quite modern technology, and you're both non-technical. How have you overcome that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're using out-of-the-box IoT technology, right? Yep. So that's third party. So we're letting the experts kind of play there. What we have also done is we've partnered with an onshore development team who've been fantastic. So this is a data visualization and AI expert team. They're called Syntagium. They've taken an equity stake in the business, and we've worked out a cost plus equity deal where we've got a whole team of quite savvy and senior developers that have built our MVP.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you're taking basically out-of-the-box technology. Who's installing it? I assume you're third party.
Third party.
To install it. And then you're collecting that data. And then once that data comes in, what happens to it?
So we've built what we call the Care Hub.
Yep.
And that's our dashboard. And all of that data is visualized, right, in a way that someone who's non-clinical can understand what's going on. So there are color-coded indicators. There are graphs where you can kind of expand for more information.
Yep.
And it's all individualized. So when we look at an individual's situation, we're not pushing them into one of 10 sort of assumptions. What we're looking at is her actual situation.
Okay.
And that care manager is then given some decision prompts that help them to check that the information is accurate and then action if needed.
And as the pilot, has it started? It's ready?
Yeah.
And how is it going?
It's going. Look, I think that we had this like sort of early vision. There was like 100 people right away, you know, and you're talking about a generation of people who are sometimes a little bit suspicious of technology.
Yep.
My grandmother in particular will not allow sensors to be put in her home. And I said, well, you know, I just kind of want to keep an eye from here on how you're doing. And she goes, well, why don't you call me? I'll tell you how I'm doing.
So you know, question.
Lovely stubbornness. I didn't just get this way with Antler. I was probably got it on it. But I think that the process has proven a lot to us that you know, the family are a really key kind of part of that influencing and education process. And then, you know, we can't again underestimate the importance of the workforce and how they're part to play in sort of saying, listen, if we're going to keep you at home for longer, we're going to need to do things a little bit differently. And we're going to have to bring some non-invasive technology in. We're not recording you. We're not listening to what you say. Yep. We're not going to report on you. This is about kind of pulling trends and applying some smarts to that and keeping you safe at home.
Okay. So your aim is to put this into homes. Your aim is to put this into aged care facilities as well, I'm assuming. Is that right?
Yeah, there are definitely applications for independent living.
Yep.
So kind of that step before residential care.
So is that we're talking about the sort of, I guess how would you put it, the estates of units where they have lots of handles that they can put, lots of things they can do, and there are staff on site, but they're in their own...
Yeah.
Rather, they're not in a room, they're in their own sort of mini unit or...
Yeah. And the community is really focused on keeping them active, keeping them engaged and so forth. And this kind of gives a little bit of a window into the home on how things are going. Yeah,
okay. And so let's say it's a roaring success in 5 years' time and you have so much data, it's crazy. What do you do with that data? Are you going to use that data to try and predict more things? Is that the idea?
On.
Okay,
That's right. So the predictive piece is going to be really, really powerful, right? So knowing that we often use a case study called a woman named Maria. So Maria's activity has dropped by 20%. We can predict what that usually looks like for someone with her kind of health profile, age profile, and so forth. The other thing is that we've begun to prototype voice. So we're really redefining the end client user journey to really be less dependent on touch screens so that we can, you know, interact with voice in a more natural way. And then eventually we'd like to move toward where we're taking sentiment analysis and maybe even looking at diagnostic tools so that we can understand if somebody's, you know, more unwell than they know they are.
Well, I mean, I guess the speed at which technology is moving, particularly medtech at the moment, means that in 2-3 years you could be offering a whole plethora of services that we don't even know exist right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And the idea is obviously to give this person more independent and a better life without everybody fussing around and worrying or having to put them into a home or all those things. That's the idea, right?
I mean, can you put a price on peace of mind? And that's really what we're providing for the family. And we're also empowering the individual to understand more about their health and well-being.
How exciting. That's a very cool business.
Thank you.
She sounds so much more exciting when I don't know the person. Okay, let's talk a little bit about you. So you would have read this question, and I always love this question. So let's talk about beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned beliefs a couple of times, actually, already. So I'm really intrigued to hear your answer on this one. So someone gave me this question just before I started ever doing this show, and I just thought it was the best question ever, and I've included it in every episode. So tell me, is there a belief that you have had at some stage in your life that has fundamentally changed, and what was it that made that change? What was the event or something that happened to you or someone else that made you change that belief? And it's always, there's so much variety in people's answers on this.
Oh, well, look, I think the world's just changed a lot, right?
A lot.
I mean, one of the reasons why I was really happy and open to settling in Australia the way that I did was my family's from the West Coast. So most of my family are in California.
Yep.
That means I can leave on Christmas morning here and still arrive Christmas morning.
How good's that?
San Francisco.
2 Christmases
it's like
every
magic.
year.
Yeah. And, you know, I guess I was always counting on you can always go home. And that's like, as chaotic as it all is, and the travel and all of that and the expense, it still feels really good. And so I've always counted on you can always go home. You can't always go home.
Can't always go home anymore.
Yeah, and so I suppose it's taught me some lessons in how to make sure that I'm developing relationships and I'm maintaining relationships that matter a lot to me. Because, and using technology to do so, right? Because, you know, those connections to the people that watched me become who is sitting before you today, they're really important.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what makes you who you are, right? Very much so.
And I think it's actually fueled my passion for eQALY as much because it's so important to me that people who've been separated by state lines or, you know, look at people in Melbourne living 5 Ks away from a loved one, probably pretty common. You know, hopefully when this technology is prolific and it's in everyone's household and everybody knows who we are and what we do, we won't have these issues of people feeling disconnected, feeling like they're not doing enough for mom or dad. They will actually have the information in front of them that says, mom's doing all right, or, you know, actually dad could use a call, a coffee, or a walk.
Do you think it will progress into wearables? Is that something that you foresee?
Oh, look, we're prepared to integrate with wearables now.
Yeah.
We've actually spoken to a global wearable company, and we're working on getting a pilot that sort of integrates that opportunity.
You've got so many avenues to go.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I've got another question that I think is quite pertinent to that because of what you're doing, you know, when you talk about wearables and things, there's a lot of money involved in this. So you've obviously raised some capital a couple of times. How have you found that being such a new business? You know, it's not an easy, there's this big sort of divide, I think, between family and friends, or seed as you want to call it, and Series A, and it's a bit of a desert, right? There's not a lot going on there. Well, how have you found that? Because you're going to need money to scale this business, there's no question.
Yeah, look, I suppose it's a question we're still asking ourselves all the time. Andy and I, we've probably had a number of statements as a team where we've gone, yep, this is what we're going to do. Yep. And then 2-3 weeks later going, was that the right thing? Maybe we should think about that. Let's talk to another advisor. And I think that what we were able to do with the Antler seed money and the strategic investment money was we were able to build out that MVP and actually get you know, a contract for our first customer and have that revenue ready to come in. I think from here, what we want to try and do is seek out more revenue. Yes. And alongside that, find the right investor to come in and kind of take us along for that journey. I think for us, look, health tech is just, I'm learning about it every day. Yep. It's conservative. It moves slow. People want a lot of proof. a lot of proof. And
They want
as you know,
guarantees, don't they? That's what they want, which doesn't exist in startup world.
the only guarantee I can give you is that I will work as hard as possible to make this all happen. That's the only guarantee. And I think at this point, as founders, what we're really doing is we're just doubling down on what we do know. We do know that we've got a great product. We know that it's early days, and what we need to do is get more clients.
Yep.
And prove that what we say is possible. Get some investment where somebody's willing to essentially take a bet that says, you know what, these founders will work as hard as it takes to make that all happen.
Well, hopefully, we have quite a lot of VCs and private equity guys who watch this show. So maybe one of them will see you and reach out and go, that's the business we want to invest in.
Hey, one can dream.
Absolutely.
It's out there.
It's out there. So let's talk about a little bit more about you. And I mentioned to you this before, and I find it very funny, but if I don't ask this question, that people do actually, some of the people who listen to the show send me comments going, why didn't you ask this question? We found that person so fascinating, and I really want to know the answer to this question.
You flatter me.
So let's hope it's a good answer.
All right.
So yeah, is there anything, I mean, I know you're obviously flat out crazy, but have there been any books that you've read that have had a profound effect on you? Are there any podcasts that perhaps you're listening to that you've discovered that have really given you something? And that doesn't have to be ones you're listening to now, it can be ones you listened to in the past. But is there anything specific out there? Because people want to know. That's one thing I know. People want to know what you're doing. So tell us.
Look, I think I'm reminding myself a lot at the moment that unplugging is really important.
Yep.
So there's something I'm listening to at the moment that really just helps me unplug. It's such a segue from what I really do. A friend of mine at Audible mentioned that someone I had worked with did a podcast, really interesting bit of work. Alan Duffy, Professor Alan Duffy, he's a physicist. He's done a podcast called Astronomical, and it's about the new search for alien life.
Oh, really?
And at first I kind of thought, I'll just check out what Alan's been up to. So we used to work together at the Royal Institution. And I got into it. I'm actually really enjoying this. So it's like, you know, the new version of, you know, the X-Files or these types of conversations. And he's just so intelligent, and he is a credible scientist. And so I find this conversation actually really stimulating. And what a nice break from talking about frailty, falls, UTIs.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, maybe when he finds it, you can get some of these wearable devices onto these aliens, and who knows what we might discover.
Let's monitor them. Yeah.
Cool. I've not had that. No one's ever brought extraterrestrials onto the show before, so that's good. All right. Tell me, now, I know you're not hiring right now, but at some stage you're going to have to scale this business. So I think let's talk about that, because I think it's good for people who might want to get involved, either from a volunteering perspective right now, or maybe join you at the time when you do start to grow. Why would someone want to come and work for eQALY?
Look, I think it's pretty evident that the industry is very, very cracked and strained. And I think someone who can look at the potential of the impact on the industry, but then on the individuals as well, right? So we're starting in aged care, but there's growth opportunities in NDIS. And when you go overseas, this opportunity is exponentially bigger.
I can imagine.
So it's pretty exciting. There's that.
Yeah.
It's impactful.
Very impactful.
Then there's also things that are kind of first of its kind and very much early stage and evolving, right? IoT, using these types of devices to measure things like frailty and chronic disease, that is embryonic.
How do you measure frailty?
So I'm not an expert.
From your understanding.
Yeah, so frailty is the condition where you're sort of slowly declining. It has to do a lot with your physical wellness, your physical activity and your physical wellness, as well as things like your weight. So if I had sensors in your home that indicated you were moving around less and less every week, you weren't going out for your weekly shop, you've got delivery happening, you've got more and more Uber Eats coming, things like that. Your muscle mass will slowly decline.
Yes.
And because of the natural effects of age, you're also going to start losing your eyesight, your ability to see in low or reduced light. So you're going to get up to answer the doorbell because your Uber Eats is there, and the chances of you tripping and falling on that beautiful rug that you've had for years, it's never really been a challenge, is suddenly actually a bit of a trap for you. So by measuring the decline of some of your vitals, we can actually determine that you're really, really at risk.
And I guess that is going to get better and better and better and better with the more data and data and data you get, right?
Yeah, we are working with a geriatrician with over 30 years experience, and the way that he talks about the challenges that the elderly face and the way that his patients do not understand the state that they're in, that they do not themselves have the awareness of how much their condition has declined.
Yeah.
It really shows you how necessary it is to sort of have another barrier in place.
Do you think that's just because the mind does not decline like the body? Well, it can do, obviously, there are certain diseases, but if you don't have any of those diseases, your mind doesn't decline like your body. You're just unaware, very much like a 40-year-old trying to run a marathon like he was 20 and injuring himself. It's the same thing again, but obviously amplified. Is that what you mean?
I mean, again, I'm not a psychologist, but I would say, yeah, it sounds a bit like that.
Yeah.
I think that there's also, it's a generational thing. It's a mindset. It's a belief.
Yeah.
You know, you and I might be very comfortable saying, you know, I've really struggled since the pandemic. Now that I can get out and go do social things, I'm not so sure I want to.
Yep.
You know, we might be very candid with each other about that because that's, we've been given permission and there's a lot of really great messaging encouraging that now, that vulnerability. But there is a generation that says, don't
tell anyone.
Keep that to yourself. That is not polite. You know, we conducted some interviews really early on, and one of the best ones was this woman. We were having a great chat. She was really enjoying telling me all about her career and things that she'd done and, you know, the art project she's working on and so on. And I asked her, you know, do you have any disease or any health issues? No, I'm fine. But throughout the conversation, and it was the latter half of the half an hour, she opened up and told me that she had fallen and broken her arm. She had to stop swimming because she actually was having a hip problem because of the replacement years ago that was kind of giving her trouble. And she'd had a heart attack at some point in the last decade. But yet, at the start of the conversation,
nothing's wrong.
Hey, Kelly, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And so, you know, that's an anecdote, but really, I think we all kind of know someone who is stubbornly independent, who, or for whatever reason, it might be a politeness issue or a cultural issue, they will not open up and complain. So, you know, doctors have this issue as well. The only time they really hear about how you're doing is when they're engaging with you in an appointment. And one of the doctors told us about the door handle clients. They're fine, taking the blood pressure, the weight, everything's good. Thank you, doctor. It's so good to see you again. Yes, how's your wife? And then the minute that they start to leave, he turns and says, oh, but I have been short of breath. Oh, I have been having trouble staying asleep at night and I find myself up a lot. You know, so here's a client and he said to the doctor, I'm fine.
But he's not fine at all.
He's reported on his wife, but he's not reported on his own health problems in the 20-minute consult.
You're right. There is very much a generation of that. And I still think there's part of that in, well, maybe my generation, not yours. You're probably a little bit sprightlier than I am in years. So, but I think there's still elements of that filter through. So, yeah, that's interesting. Kelly, this has been really, really interesting. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I think what you're doing is amazing. And I can see and I agree with you. If someone wants to work for a company, you know, one of the things I hear and I have heard continuously for 20-odd years, but more so now since the pandemic, is people are looking for something where they can have an impact. It doesn't necessarily have to be a socially good impact, but an impact. But what you're doing is going to have an impact on the world, and I think that's amazing. And
don't forget, this technology is evolving, right? I mentioned voice.
Yeah.
So we're looking for someone who's got that user experience or that customer experience design around voice. This is a very hard to find talent.
I'll bet.
So we're always on the lookout for that, and we also are really keen to find people from the medical or clinical fields that are coming in to do something more entrepreneurial. That's a special combination.
That is a special combination. So if someone's interested in talking to you, just reach out to you on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn or our website, eQALY.co.
eQALY. So eQALY.com?
.co.
Cool. See you.
eQALY.co. Yep.
All right. Cool. Fantastic.
Thanks, Steve. This was great.
It's been a pleasure, Kelly, and good luck with it. I can't wait to hear how it's going in a couple of years.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you.